It's become a big business. A lot of people have very good salaries. And what they do, they're regulating. That's what they're doing. They're regulating us to make their living. And the more they can regulate, the more valuable their job is.
There are no checks and balances in the fishery management system in the United States.
The Fisheries Service actually promulgates more regulations than any other federal agency other than the Internal Revenue Service.
If the agency decides to do this, there's no way there's no way to counterbalance that.
So in the course of 14 years, we have fishermen who went from being virtually unregulated with the ability to fish 365 days a year to now, for example, in the Northeast multi-species fishery, most boats are limited to 48 days a year.
And even when fishermen have said, okay, you want us out, then do a federal buyback program. They've come back and said, yes, we would do a buyback, but you have to be industry funded.
In the automobile industry, you have major companies that have the capability of, and should have the capability of, straightening out the way they're managed.
There are differential rules based on seasons, based on area, based on boat size, based on gear size.
And you know, right now our government is bailing out all the banks and all the mortgage company with billions and trillions of dollars.
Trip limits differ based upon the type of license you hold, based upon where you're fishing, based upon when you're fishing.
But that's what they're saying to the fishermen. Right. You want a boat buyback program? It has to be an industry-funded program, which means the people who remain are going to pay for the rest of their life. Right. Where is the fairness into that?
And they don't have the resources like, you know, a huge company does or a huge industry to restructure.
And the interplay of regulations really makes it virtually impossible for any one individual to understand what's going on in the fishery.
I think the most important thing about what we're asking for is not something that dismantles the current system. It just makes it easier for us to achieve our goals, which is making a living, being productive, having as little impact as possible, providing a seafood source to the American public, while not damaging really the ongoing recovery of the stocks. I mean, and it can be done, but under the current management, it can't be done.
Basically, the fishermen I know, after being in this business for 50 years, they're really smart people, and basically, they see that if they overfish stocks and the stocks go down because of that, that's the income for them tomorrow and income for any of their successors.
The last thing I want to do is hurt my future or my family's future, and then on. It's crazy.
Does that make any sense when you got $1 million, $2 million boat? Do you want to go put yourself out of business next year so your investment and your livelihood is worth nothing?
Really put out there that, they're not going to come out and say it, but let's face it, what they're saying is fishermen would catch the less fish if they could. Well, they would put themselves out of business. Fishermen don't want to do that.
Nobody has more to gain or lose from a well-protected and well-preserved ocean than we do. We have no future if we catch everything today. None of us. All of us are stewards of the ocean at some level.
We have a very serious stake in a healthy resource. No one has more of a serious stake in it than us.
We used to consider ourselves environmentalists, and all of a sudden we became the enemy. I'm not sure where that happened, at what point in my career that I went from being environmentalist to the enemy. But
I strongly feel that we've been very responsible stewards of the ocean. We meaning the fishing people.
We're not out like the last buffalo hunters out to kill the last fish in the ocean.
Most of them understand that they are not only the suppliers of food to people, but they're also responsible. They're stewards for that ocean.
Every responsible fisherman is an environmentalist, but we're not extremists. There's the difference. We know when we need to fish, we do what we have to do to make a dollar. We don't purposely degrade any of the fisheries that we're involved in. We do what we can to protect them. We preserve them. We've been doing it for years.
Don't believe that there aren't fish. There's plenty of fish. We just need to have the mechanism in place to allow us to to harvest them at a rate that's suitable for everyone and allows the fish to sustain themselves.
You know, I would like to say it's all National Marine Fisheries' fault, but it's not. It's not. It's Congress's fault. Now, I do think that the agency has got some very significant problems, but I still think a lot of very significant problems. But I do think a lot of it is generated from the interpretations made from congressional actions.
You want fresh caught seafood, we need to get a hold of the National Marine Fisheries Service through our congressional leaders and say, hey, time to wake up, we've had enough of this.
You know, the average fisherman is at sea. And so the average fisherman has no way to reply to this.
It has to let them operate as business people. The whole system is designed on, it's commercial fishermen primarily, but it's fishermen in general who are causing all the problems. And my thinking of why it is like that is because the only thing the fisheries managers can manage is fishermen. They can't manage marine mammal stocks. They can't manage seal stocks. The law won't let them. They can't manage dolphin stocks, whale stocks, because the law won't let them.
It's sure we don't eat all the fish in the sea because fish eat fish. As the old poem says, great fish on little fishes feed, and these in turn on those of lesser bulk.
They can't manage pollution, because no one can manage pollution. You know, every year 5% more of our population moves to the seashore. Right? Every year 5% more stuff goes into the ocean.
The production of the estuaries has gone down tremendously, and of the coastal areas. So you got so many conservation problems that we can no longer afford to mess around with the twigs on the conservation decision tree. We've got to get the roots, better data, better decisions.
The only term for a troubled commercial stock in the United States is overfished. And it's touted to the public as a commercial fisheries problem.
Overfishing, I hear it all the time. I have people come in and, you know, I'm here to talk about overfishing. I'm like, geez, overfishing doesn't occur. Yeah. You know, overfishing is, you know, we need to be allowed to catch what's there. That's the thing.
They constantly read the doom and gloom in the papers, and they look at the labels of overfish and overfishing.
We're already the bad guys. We're already the bad guys, and that's our fault for not educating the public, as well as our adversaries have educated them against us.
It's hard to counter an organization that sells calendars and gets a lot of money.
We have what we call very restrictive trip limits. Fishermen go out and fish, and it's kind of a, you know, it's always been a little bit of a gamble. You go out and maybe you can make enough to pay your expenses today and for the next 5 days, and suddenly you have a fantastic trip and you've made a profit for the week. Unfortunately now, under our present system with a restrictive trip limit, a man can go out and catch his, if he's limited to 1,000 pounds a day, he may not catch 1,000 pounds a day. He may catch 500, 600, 700 pounds. Well, on the 5th day, he may catch 15,000 pounds. And so the question is, what does he do with it? It is illegal to bring it in. It's also immoral to discard it dead.
Everything we're bringing up is pretty much good legal-sized fish. They're only going overboard because we're not allowed to bring them in, not because they're too small or they're the wrong kind of fish. We're just not allowed to harvest them because of these low quotas.
There is no provision in all of the reauthorizations that says that you don't have to have historical levels at the same time. There is no clear guidance. It says now historical levels, and they're picking numbers that are unachievable. They're totally unachievable. Fluke is a perfect example. No matter how good things look, we'll never get there. And there's more fluke in the ocean now than I've ever seen. And anybody that's fished this fishery will tell you the same thing.